Hello, Steve89. Well, I think we all know The Sopranos. Now, I stumbled across a little article in the Hollywood Reporter where they're interviewing David Chase, who was the creator of the show or the writer of the show. Now, a lot of people were hung up on the ending of the show, the final of the show. Now, I didn't really like the show. I appreciate that it's well written and everything, and it's sort of credited with elevating TV to like the level of film for HBO and so forth. And I think it gets a bit too much credit. It wasn't the first show to try and do that. Like Twin Peaks was one of the first shows that did that really successfully, and that was a decade before The Sopranos. But it did have a huge following. It did get a lot of recognition, a lot of awards, and I did think it was well done when I watched it, but I didn't like it because basically I just felt like it was validating bad people and criminals and wanting to humanize these people and make us like them and normalize this sort of behavior. And why would I want to spend time with people like this? These are the kind of people I try to avoid in my real life, so why would I want to spend time with them in my like TV fantasy life? So I didn't really watch the show. I saw a few episodes and was like, yeah, nah. Now years later I did watch the whole series on DVD just to make sure I knew what I was talking about when I talked about the show. I didn't want to just be watching a couple of episodes and drawing a conclusion of the whole series, so I did watch the whole thing on DVD like a year or so after it finished. Now my TV experience though was I just watched a couple of episodes, didn't like it. Once Tony sort of showed who he was, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be around this person. And then I got sucked back in when I heard, I think I just randomly turned an episode on and saw one of the characters was gay, and I thought, well, where are they going to go with this? And of course they went nowhere. The guy was killed, he didn't have a happy ending. Of course you had to bury the gay, kill the gay, whatever, so punish the gay, whatever. So I wasn't really impressed with that either. But I mean, it's not like it was homophobic. I think most people met an end like that. That's sort of how that lifestyle goes. But I didn't really watch again until the end of the series when people were talking about how amazing the ending was. I thought, well, I have to watch this just to see how it goes. Now, you all may remember, basically, they're sitting in a cafe, Don't Stop Believing's playing, and you see like a door open, basically, and it goes to black, and you don't know, has someone walked in? Did they get taken out? Did they get killed? Or is it just they get a happy ending and just live forever looking over their shoulder? I mean, what. Now, I don't think it's that difficult to work out what happens. You can't live like that and not have consequences. So I was sure at some point, yeah, if it wasn't that day, the next day someone walked in and blew him away. And pretty much that's true. That's basically how it went. In the 2018 book, The Sopranos Sessions, written by these two guys who wrote for the New Jersey Star Ledger, which was the paper Tony read in the show, Matt Zoller-Seitz, I can't pronounce the name, and Alan Sepinwall, they interviewed David Chase, and they asked him about the final and, the literal last scene. And he said, well, I had that death scene in mind for years before. And they're like, what? When did that reminder specifically come to you? And was that a slip of the tongue, these guys asked? Or this guy asked for this interview. And he said, basically, he had a scene in his mind, but not that scene. And nor did I think of cutting to black. He said, I had a scene in which Tony comes back from a meeting in New York in his car. At the beginning of every show, he came from New York to New Jersey. And the last scene would be of him, or could be of him, coming home from New Jersey, back into New York, coming from home in New Jersey, back into New York for a meeting at which he was going to be killed. And then they asked, when did that alternative ending first occur to you? Because some showrunners know at the beginning of the show how it's going to end, or maybe far into the show they know how it's going to end. And he said he basically was just driving on Ocean Park Boulevard and near an airport, and he saw a little restaurant, and it was that little kind of shack that served breakfast, he said. And for some reason I thought, Tony should get it in a place like that. And that was like 2 years before. So basically that's what happened. That's where Tony died. Someone walked in and killed him. They found him there and killed him. And it makes perfect sense to me. I think it's a good ending. I wish they'd just shown it, but I understand why, for the sake of, conversation and everything, that they left it sort of open so people could theorise and agonise over it. Some people who liked Tony, wanted to give him a happy ending, would believe he somehow just lived with looking over his shoulder. Other people would believe that, yeah, sure, someone walked in and blew them away right after that, because you can't live that life and not, end up that way. So he was a little bit annoyed that people were focused on that more than real issues, and the fact that people really want to see Tony get punished. He seems to think it was hypocritical that people would watch him for all these years and obviously like him on some level, and still want to see him be punished. And I'm like, well, yeah. Basically, you want to believe there's some consequences and so forth, and people don't get to like get away with stuff like that. So I'm happy with the way it ended. I'm glad it's finally been revealed, and I just had to talk about it because it interested me, and that's what I do. I just talk about things that interest me. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Yeah, I guess there's not a lot to say about it. It's final now. We know how it ended, so there's not a lot of speculation. Before I would have been asking, what do you think happened? Well, now we know. So yeah, I'm going to go. Bye.